is exactly 35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. We're going to continue our conversation with Archbishop Anthony Muheria, head of the Nyeri Archdiocese. Archbishop, what is it about us Kenyans? We love to go all the way to the edge of the abyss, look over. Maybe we don't like what we see and then pull back. What is it about us?
That's a very good question. I wish I could really give a good answer. But I think Kenyans we are rather strange people. I'll use that word because we've seen what happens to all our neighbors when they go into this kind of chaos. But we don't seem quite to learn. A few things that I think we need to get right. Kenyans, as we've seen, just to look at Shakahola, are tremendously gullible. We suffer from some sense of such of messianism, some guy to come and save us. And whoever sells some strange story or way of action so that I may get myself relieved, I may get what I have so much longed for, really convinces us so easily. So we are very gullible and therefore slightly volatile, I would say. But I also think, besides that, we Kenyans seem not to want to engage ourselves with good. We, even our things, we spotlight the evil, the ills. So we bash ourselves so much. We're always saying we're a bad country, things are not working. And when people come, they tell you, hey, you have a wonderful country, things are going very well. So I feel that we have been somehow wired a little bit pessimistically, and therefore any pessimistic view gets a bit of resonance with us. But maybe deeper, while we claim to be religious, I do not believe that we Kenyans really follow deep-seated principles. And it's just driving on the road tells you that people don't respect one another, which is really the basic principle of any religion: love, respect. So I think we live a double life somehow, that we claim to be religious, that we go to worship, that we do a lot of good things that refer to God, but deep down God doesn't have a place in our hearts. So when a politician speaks the way we hear them speaking, and then I ask myself, does that man have God or that woman have God in their heart when they're speaking like that to their neighbor? I don't have a good answer. When a Kenyan is ready to throw a stone to another Kenyan because he has a car, or a Kenyan is ready to enter into someone's shop because he has a little more than that, I also don't have an answer. And also, when we don't care for the poor. So I think a Kenyan is we need to recover the true Kenyan. We need to recover the true Kenyan. But beyond that, maybe it's a good moment to just plead with our Kenyan people that the life of a Kenyan is worth so much, that our country is worth so much, that we really must treasure what God has given us. Is really the way we have been praised by all the African countries. It's something we must hold dear. But is not Kenya a lifeless kind of nation or lifeless object? Kenya is people. It's you, Jeff, it's me, it's you, Vicky. It's that I must love and respect the treasure that each other is. And then that means we are then able to work together. We are so different. We have different political positions. We have different aspirations, different religions, creeds, but still there is some fiber that keeps us together. And that fiber is the one which is loosened, is getting lost by all this cacophony, by all these new songs and drums of war. And the Kenyan seems to love too much these rhythms without knowing what song we are singing. And this song is not a good song. The song of violence is not a good song. And the song of hatred is not a good song. Hatred breeds very soon seeking people to hurt. And very soon the heart brings death. And that's what we've seen in Shakahola. That's what we've seen in Lodiani. And I think we have become numbed, a bit numbed to really the plight of people, to empathy, that death doesn't seem to shudder us. We seem, 400 people have died in Shakahola. We don't have not even one answer. And then we just say, okay, that's very interesting. Now, please serve me the water. please serve me the tea. It's not a non-issue. This amongst the leaders, this amongst us, even amongst the religious leaders. So I think Kenyans must recover their soul. And that soul is their conscience. And it's not just speaking religiously. I just think that we must recover our humanity, because that's what has been eroded tremendously. I can only insult someone who I have dehumanized, because if he is my he's my brother and she's my sister, I won't just treat her like dirt. So I think it's a chance today, and it's a chance even with all the difficulties that we have, to huddle together like little children when it's cold. We are all suffering, but let's huddle together and we get a little warmer and find a solution. But let's not now fight over the blanket. Let's not tear the blanket. Let's not tear the country apart. We are steeped on just pitting the leaders one against the other. Let's change the script. It's not about who is a leader. It's not about which political party. It's about us. It's about life. And it's about that we are Kenyans, and we must really safeguard it. If only that would come down all the way to the leadership, from the president to all the leaders, to each one who has been given that, to us, we who are down there, the lead, the citizenry. If that comes through, then we will have a tremendous Kenya. Different, diverse, various political, allowing dissent, allowing other opinion, and we'll be good. We're good to go.
Archbishop, you know, we saw the efforts to have bipartisan talks fall through not too long ago.
Yes.
If we were to get both sides of the political divide back to the table, what form should those talks actually take?
My thoughts, and I don't think I'm an expert, I'll just give an opinion. My thoughts is that those talks should first not focus on individuals. Our politics should now cease being person-driven, away from the individuals and the persons. Those talks should speak about, can we work towards improving the plight of the poor? First, the cost of living. What is it? Because opposition should hold government accountable, should ask the questions. Why has the fuel gone up in 1 year, 80 shillings? How come the unga is now at 220 and we had promised it to be down there? So those are questions. And how can we get it back to 150? And how, these are the questions. Is there something we can do? So a conversation about which we can resolve something and get a path. So first is the cost of living. Second, in my view, is the concern of the general feel of the economic situation we're finding ourselves in. It's across the world, it's global, but it touches our Kenyans, and especially those in the lower economic bracket, much more. The fact that, for example, I just think that the leadership sometimes loses touch with the ground, that the increase of fuel means increase of fare, and that 100 shillings increase of fare per day is 1,500 for a poor worker. And that's what you pay in a little room up there in Kangemi. And up there is 2,500. So I think we have to break it down to what does it mean, what we are doing, how is it hurting the Kenyan, and especially the one in the lower bracket. The talk should be that. The talk should also be ways of reforming so that we don't end up here. And it's not so much about the system. It's not need of going back to the BBI, but I think the way of how do we collaborate and how can we improve our relations and communications? How can opposition have a way which is systematized or that is institutionalized of communicating with the government? Which are the fora that we must have where we have standing, organic meeting points where you hold us accountable and where we give you an account and you can ask the question? That's what we must hold. It's not just, it can be a once-off. It must be something that continuous. And Parliament, how can we make Parliament an organ that is answering to the reality and not a manipulation tool? These are questions that in that table we must take. Finally, I think it's important that we do not have a politic that is based on election cycle. That every time we're looking at 2027, after 2027, that's not politics, because it's skewed. It's a prism that you can't see. So let's not speak about individuals and personalities. Let's not speak about election cycle. Let us address, even now, the EABC needs to be addressed. How do we go ahead about the EABC? Because that's absolutely important. Can we at least agree on that and move ahead? These are the areas where we do need and to speak about. And it's not only the parties that they are the stakeholders. And those stakeholders also have a voice and an opinion.
Archbishop, looking ahead to this week, a 3-day mandamano is unsustainable. Something has got to give, because businesses and just about everything will grind to a halt. What needs to be done for sanity or level heads to prevail?
I do believe that the first plea we are making, and we continue making it, and I really believe that it's God's plea. I mean, all the leaders have said it. All the religious leaders have told our leader of Azimio that kindly reconsider. Kindly reconsider. This is not just about sustainability. It's about the risk we have even of losing more life. Is that the opposition's role is not to make sure that nothing goes in terms of the economy. It's not to paralyze a country. We have to get away from the script that seeks to bring a country to a halt, but to a script that brings the plight, those issues, the rights up for discussion. That's what demonstrations are meant to be, to tell the government and whoever needs to be told, these are the issues. They are not meant to make the government unable to deliver. But it's not about government. Right now, really, it's about the very economy that currently is so bad is going to be hurt even further. And by the way, the ones whose shops and businesses are going to be affected are not the super wealthy, are not the top, because those ones have got dogs, those ones have got radar, those have got gates that you can't break in. It is the poor mama mboga. It is the shops that are middle class, which don't have very good doors. The people who are going to die are not going to be the top, if God forbid, and I pray that no one dies, and I pray that there can be some bit of sanity, as you say, but normally it will be someone's daughter who already is pitted in poverty. Surely do we spiral poverty? Do we now weave misery with the threads of poverty in order to get messianism? So I think our plea is just, it shouldn't be. It's true, it might be they are in their right. The Constitution grants them the right to do so. That we do not contest. But I do believe there is more than the Constitution. That's called conscience. Does my conscience tell me that it's worth risking all these people's life? Does my conscience tell me that it is worth pushing a country economy to a halt? On the other hand, we also are saying the police must learn to be very humane. It's not acceptable to use live bullets, even in these circumstances. We do realize a number of them were threatened with life, surely, but I do not think we can condone the use of live ammunition. We cannot condone brutality of the police, even with people who are doing ill. We must contain using new ways. So my plea, and our plea as religious leaders, is from our leaders of Azimio and those who are pressing for demonstration, please reconsider. It's not about paralyzing our nation. It's not about crashing our nation. Give your plight, your issues, and explain them. You don't have to kill the whole economy in order to show that you had a point.
Archbishop, I have to ask this because, as long as some people's interests are not served, and we've seen this bad blood, if you will, kind of continue from the last general election. We're almost a year after that, and we're still having to deal with that push and pull between the both sides of the political divide. But what do you say to the two? Because what many people would say at the crux of this issue is not the cost of living, it's really a piece of power that some are trying to agitate for. And until they get that, this will not cease. And you talked about, what form the talks should take. The third point you pointed out was the fact that, the structure of power and how we move forward in terms of governance. That is the biggest, agenda on the table, if you think about it. But what do you tell those leaders who are looking for power and yet would probably come under the guise of other interests, such as cost of living or something else?
Many times we do see what you refer to, Vicky, that there may not be honesty, total honesty in what is being agitated for. But it's not for us to judge intentions. Obviously, I would be wrong to judge and say, hey, it's not about the poor, it's about you, because I think we should not be judgmental. However, I think there is no doubt that there is a feeling of disappointment and letdown to those who didn't get to the offices they wanted. And it's not only about the presidency. It is something we said we should address across the country. Yep. There were many losers, and those who lost elections or who didn't capture the seats they were seeking have a trauma they're going through. They have to be helped to accept the role that they now have until the next election. I would say here that there is need of a discussion that is a bit more prolonged, a discussion that is a bit deeper about how in this nation, our governance can be improved. And that has been a discussion even before the previous election, and several ideas were floated. But there has to be goodwill on the part of politicians, because we don't speak about it. The two underlying ills that make this very discussion very difficult amongst leaders and amongst those who come on the table to discuss those long-term solutions is greed. I want it all. And I want a lot of power, and I want it all. I don't want to share it, because those before me had it all. I must have it all. So there is a kind of freezing on the institution that was there before. I would like to be like that. So I think we need to be humble enough to sit down and discuss about models that can improve our governance. But that, again, is a role of those who are expert in governance to advise us. We as church and as religious leaders actually feel that discussion is more about the discussion that the center of all politics must be, how do we serve the Kenyan and especially the poor? Because if we don't have that, the sharing of power is merely self-serving for the leaders. I move off, musical chairs, there's a new leader, I have my turn, but really we don't have that concern. Yeah. We must touch ground. We must know how at the ground people are feeling. And that's why today we plead also for the government to listen to the plight of the Kenyans. We spoke about it in the finance bill. And the finance bill needed to be tweaked because it is hurting very badly the Kenyan who is down there in the lower bracket. But the silence or the ignorance, I think we need to talk a lot even about how we lead, not by decree. This is the other thing we are saying, that anyone in government makes declarations. Yep. And there is no one studying the issue. And with those declarations, one discordant with another, we end up in a chaos. But it's all about power. I've said it because I have this position in education, in health, etc. We need a structured way of governance. We need people to be accountable and have jurisdictions and have limits. We can't have limitless powers of decree of anything. So these are the things that we need to discuss, so that also the Kenyan has a chance to come back and give an opinion. Public participation must be actual public participation.
Yeah. Finally, real quick, the leaders have to rein in their rogue lieutenants. They have to rein them in because
Indeed.
the language is getting more foul and it's raising tension levels on both sides. Something will give eventually. So these leaders have to rein in these rogue lieutenants.
We plead with them this escalation that should not have been, by the way, in the first place. And obviously showing life-threatening, we've already been threatened. That brings very, very vile thoughts and very vile feelings. I think we are Kenyans and we are believers in God. If we are, then our leaders must call their lieutenants to a meeting and tell them it cannot continue like this. We must change the way we are doing this. And Azimio and the whole leaders must listen to this, that it's not about just demonstration. It's about individuals and persons. Can we speak? Can we look for a solution? Can we really give life and not death? So that we are not led into that path of death and hate and destruction. We are fighting for a blanket. Let's not tear it apart. Let's know how to huddle and to use a blanket a little together. That's what we have, our Kenya. Let's not, even if we are different size, we all can actually find solutions.
Absolutely. Archbishop Anthony Muheria, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for your time. Keep talking.
Thank you for having me.
And please, that sanity has got to prevail.
Thank you.
Archbishop Anthony Muheria says, don't tear the blanket.
Keep it intact.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great words, great words. We still have plenty more ahead, folks. Stay with us. There's a feature for tonight you wouldn't want to miss. Stay with us. In the meantime, keep tweeting at Kanengajeff.
At Vicky Rubadiri.